G'day everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Fat Rod. Something a bit different today, based on some of the things I'm seeing from streamers on YouTube, as well as some of the questions I'm getting on Discord. I thought I'd put together a video with a couple of important tips that'll help you with your next playthrough. So these are how to aim with firearms, how to make money smithing because the items are very different in 1700, what troops to go for early game and how many you need, which companions to get, and finally how to capture your first fief and get to the kingdom stage. So it should be one or two tips that even experienced players weren't aware of. So let's get into it. So there's a few things I want to show you with aiming. First of those is using first person mode to get a bit of extra zoom. So this is the normal zoom just by pressing shift. But then if I switch to first person mode by hitting R, I get a little bit more zoom from the decreased field of view. And that's going to make it easier to hit our headshots. The next part is where to actually place the crosshair to get a headshot. And the answer to that is always above the head. Because of the bullet drop, any gun, when firing further than anywhere other than point blank, you have to start compensating up. So we'll see where I put the crosshair here. It's going to be slightly above his head. And then you compensate further based on the range. We'll have a look at a few examples. Okay, so we'll line him up here, moving that slightly above the head based on that range. And we can see that's a headshot. Similar one here. That was pretty close, so I didn't have to compensate too much. These next two are a little bit further away, so we'll move it up. Another headshot. And let's take a look at this final one. And this one, we move up a little bit further again. So there you go. All headshots, and all because we are slightly compensating based on the range. So you'll kind of get the hang of that. You know, once you're using a better gun like a Jaeger rifle and you're quite long distances, you just keep moving that, moving the crosshair up higher and higher. But once you get the hang of it, you'll be hitting those headshots and getting kills every single time. So the last point on aiming is using fortifications as protection and shooting through the gaps, like I'm doing right here. So I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but I never realized this was possible until I started using first-person view. But basically, these holes in the siege fortifications, as well as the little Merlin holes in the castle walls and the keep in front of us here, you can shoot through those if you switch to first person. You can technically do it in third person, but you can't really see what you're shooting at, especially if you're defending and you're trying to shoot through the holes in the keep walls. You can't actually see anything. But switching to first person, of course, you can see what you're doing. So we'll just reload here and take a look at one more example. So there we go. I can shoot through, see through, take my shot, and I'm still fully protected. So you're actually really safe hiding behind these things. I now understand why they exist. So yeah, good little tip, that one, and should make it easier for the player at least, both attacking and defending. So the next tip is on smithing and making money in 1700. So most people would know that in vanilla and 1100, if you are creating two-handed swords with one-handed grips, you can make a shitload of cash very quickly. But that doesn't work in 1700 because I've removed most of the vanilla gear, and there's very little steel or fine steel in the game. But there is still one option, a series of parts you can use to make a pretty decent item that still sells pretty well. So if we go into the market here, the item you're after is the Iron Saber. So it's the basic sword that most units in the game have. Fairly cheap to buy at around $1,000. And if we jump into our smithing UI, we'll see that this smelts for 4 wrought iron and 2 iron. And you can tell I've already done quite a lot of these based on what I've already got. So now if we look at the item we want to craft, it will be the usual two-handed sword with a one-handed grip. The first part, the blade, we'll use the pointed falchion blade. We can see it's a tier 4 and only uses 3 wrought iron. Next for the guard, again there's a tier 4. It's the rounded flat guard, and this only uses 1 iron. For the grip, there is no tier 4 grip, so the best you can do is this one here, the northern split two-hander, which just uses 1 iron. And then for the pommel, we have the hold pommel, which uses 1 wrought iron. So 3 of the 4 parts are all tier 4. So I've just crafted a sword here. You can see it's the crafted variant, so not rusty and not fine, just the standard one. And we'll have a look what that sells for. And we can see here 15,950, almost 16,000 for that sword. So pretty good. It's not so much that it's absolutely game breaking, but it's also going to give you a decent amount of money kind of in the early to mid game, and something you can easily craft from the sparse materials that are available. So our next tip is which companions to go for. Now I should explain that I've got a particular approach with this playthrough, which is that I want to get to tier 4 as soon as possible. And create my own kingdom as soon as possible. And my strategy for doing that is to get myself to 100 troops and then capture a rebel settlement. And I'm going to do this in Italy because these settlements like Cagliari, Napoli, Palermo, they have a tendency to rebel early because they are owned by the Spanish, which is obviously the wrong culture for their region. So my strategy here is I want to get wanderers of Italian culture because they are going to be my governors once I actually start to capture some settlements. And for that reason, the culture is actually more important to me than their traits. So if we have a look at what Italian wanderers are actually available, I don't have many choices. The boar and the bull guys are going to be fighters, and Renato of the Hills, he's probably a scout. But I'm not too fussed which of these I get. And the reason for that is because it's actually quite easy to train the skills you want into a wanderer if you get them nice and early. So what we're going to do here, we've tracked down Leonardo. If you just look at the skills down the bottom, this actually only shows skills above 50. So he might actually have some other skills that are pretty decent in the 40s, but they won't show up here.
Your health.
But I'm okay with this. I'm going to buy this guy anyway, and I'll just explain these traits a little bit more. So if we take a look at his skills now, we can actually see he's got a pretty decent spread. 15 tactics, 22 leadership, a little bit of quartermaster and engineer, and he's actually got 8 in scouting. That's enough for me. I would happily make him a scout. And that's because, like I said, if I get him nice and early and I put some learning points and some trait points into scouting, that skill will go up really quickly. Not as quick as someone that's got higher scout skill, but quick enough. By the time I get to the mid-late game, he'll be as good as anyone else. And really, for scouting, for example, the only things you really want early game are these first couple of bonuses that give you the speed bonus for your whole party. And he'll get through those quite quickly if I give him the learning points. So this is okay for scout, medic, or healer and engineer, but quartermaster is a bit different. Quartermaster, I definitely do want someone with the steward skill. And the reason for that is because the steward skill gives you a boost to your party size. So I'm going to quickly hire this chick here. She's got a 47 steward skill. You notice that did not show up in her skills in the tavern because it was less than 50. So if we look at my party size now, it's only 25. But once I assign her to be my party leader, you can see actually there it says it's going to boost by 11.8. And that's with her only having, relatively low skill of 48. As that increases, that bonus is going to get a lot higher. That's good because it's going to get me to that 100 troop level that I want a lot sooner. So you want to find the best quartermaster you can early game. And you'll actually do that by marrying someone rather than trying to get it from a companion. So I've just quickly increased my clan tier here just to demonstrate my point. Getting to tier 4, my party size is now up over 100. So combination of quartermaster and my tier level, that's going to be more than enough troops to actually take a rebel settlement. The last point I was going to make on companions is avoiding the cruel trait, or sadistic as well. Anything that's minus mercy. The reason for this is because if they are either your companion or they are a lord, and that's either you've made a companion into a lord or you've bribed a lord who happens to be cruel, when you take a settlement, and if you don't sack it, you will lose relationship with them. The cruel lords want you to sack and want you to loot the cities, which I never do because I don't want to make that place more difficult to manage. I want it to grow and give me more income. So I always avoid the cruel lords, even if they happen to have the culture that I want. So that's another one to look out for. Okay, so tip number 4 is which troops you want if you're following my strategy here of getting to the kingdom stage as quickly as possible. Now, basically what you want for your 100 troops is long-range units. And there's 2 in pretty much every tree, which there'll be 1 in the irregulars, the rifleman or the hunter usually, and in the regular tree it will be the guards and life guards. Both of these units have the long-range Jaeger rifle or the Eastern equivalent, which is the Jezzail rifle. So both of these will be able to outrange any other unit. What you'll notice is that the AI will still fire from a long distance, and people always complain about this with the looters. Yes, they can fire from a long distance, but it doesn't mean they're going to hit you. Their accuracy is bad, so you're at much less risk. Your long-range units are still going to perform better than others. So essentially, in the early to mid-game, you should be training up all of your troops to be one of these 2 units. And once you've got about 100 of those, you'll have enough troops to take a rebel settlement. Now, if we just look at an actual battle here, the trick is to deploy these guys pretty far away from the actual settlement. Their range is still good enough that they'll be able to hit. So if you look at my example here, I've got them right up the back near actually behind my artillery. But they will still be able to fire and hit the enemy from here. And I'll skip ahead a little bit. Looking back, my troops are all the way up the back of the battlefield there. But if you look at the kill feed, they're still getting plenty of kills. So I'm up the front here just to see what's going on, hiding behind the siege works, but we can see that my long-range units are actually getting kills pretty easily. Now, despite what the power bar says, I was outnumbered by 50% in this battle, but my superior troops are actually going to win this for me. So this is what you want to go for early game. So our last tip here is capturing a fief, and remembering that I'm doing this pretty early on and with not a lot of troops. So some of the usual tricks here, what I'm going to do is wait until the rebel lords leave the settlement. Then once they do, I'm going to buy up all of the food. So I'm just waiting in town here. We can see there's 2 of them. There we go. They've just popped out. So now what I'll do is buy whatever remaining food is in the settlement. This is so we can starve out the garrison. Looks like they were actually starving anyway. They didn't have much there. Now I will attack these rebels. The reason I do this is because attacking rebels, you get a relationship penalty with the rebel faction, but because they don't belong to a kingdom and these guys are going to die, the faction will get eliminated as soon as I take the settlement. So there's actually no relationship penalty with a major kingdom, which is what I want. So he bids me peace, but sorry mate, surrender or die, yield or fight. So then we'll quickly, we'll make short work of these guys. I obviously outnumber them. I'll skip ahead in this battle, but setting my usual kind of hockey stick formation here. These guys should walk into me, and because of my long-range units, they'll take heavy losses, while I should have very minimal. So skipping ahead, we can see in the kill feed, lots of kills for me. I'm only going to take minimal losses. So finish that off there. You can see I've lost 12 units, but I've still got enough to take this settlement. So the usual stuff now, take them prisoners. I'll take all of their prisoners because I'll be able to recruit some of those before I start the attack. They'll get converted while I'm sieging the settlement. Usual stuff, take the loot. And now we'll go ahead and we'll besiege the settlement. Now another thing to note here is do the usual thing, building the heavy guns, but what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to destroy the walls. Reason for that is if you destroy the walls, the militia or the garrison will sit behind the walls, and they're actually harder to get at. They're harder to kill. You've got to move your units up, and it takes a really long time to clear them out. Whereas if you leave the walls intact, they will all go up to shoot from the walls, and they're easier for your long-range units to kill. So the only reason I've built my cannons is to clear the enemy cannons. But once that's done, I can start the attack already. So this is actually the battle we saw earlier, so I won't show you the whole thing. Essentially, my long-range units are up the back, clearing the enemy off the walls. Now what we'll do, we'll skip ahead, just so we can see the outcome of the battle. Once I'd killed once I'd cleared enough of the guys off the walls, I decided to just send my men in. I took a lot of casualties, and this kind of highlights the need to use some different tactics. If you just let the vanilla AI take over, they're going to get themselves slaughtered. But once I had enough of an advantage, I was happy to just send them over the walls. So once we've done that, we'll take the troops, take the prisoners, because we'll sell all of those, take the loot, of course. And now what I'll do is I'm basically ready to declare my kingdom, because I've got to tier 4, I've got my fief, and what I'll do is I'll assign a governor, and all I've got to do is then talk to that guy, and it will give me the option to declare a kingdom. Now in this case, I actually can't do it because too many of my troops are injured. I've just got to wait a little bit until they stop being wounded, and then I'll be able to declare my kingdom. So that's basically it. I was able to do all that within kind of 1 or 2 years in game. So it actually doesn't take very long to get through that early stage. The next release is also going to introduce the reduced renown tiers, which 1100 now has. So you can get through this early stage and get to the big battles even quicker. So that's it for the tips and tricks video. Hopefully a couple of things in there that you weren't aware of, and should help you with your next playthrough. Really the main thing, if you adopt this play style, is just to get to that end game as fast as possible, get your kingdom together, and get into those big battles, which it's really all about. So with that, we'll see you next time.